It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a teaching tutorial Thursday, which means it is a Greg Cosell Thursday. The civilian GOAT from NFL Films University, the NFL matchup show. You know, by the way, we're presented by DraftKings. I love DraftKings. DraftKings. That's a little bit tip of the cap to the people back in the day. I love, it's the little things in life. Every Thursday, one of the YouTube comments we get, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, is from my guy Joel Swisher saying, it's a Greg Cosell Thursday. Every week he does it. Every week he leaves the same comment on the same video, and I don't know why, but it makes me very happy. Any of you can get a shout out from me. Like, I will record a 30 to 45 second video on my phone and send it to you. All you have to do is subscribe to youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Again, subscribing is free, right? All you're doing is like, you're hitting the thumbs up button. That's it. Just hit the thumbs up. It's free. You're not costing you anything. And make a comment so I can see that you did it, because I can't track everybody that subscribes. I can track everybody that makes a comment. We will have a sponsor confirmation email winner tomorrow. We've had a bunch of good sponsors this week. And if you forget them and you need something, go to rosstucker.com, click on the sponsor tab. And then the spread the word winner, looking for a few good men or women to step up to the plate and share on Facebook, or how about quote tweet? You will get a retweet from me and or at Ross Tucker Pod. So at Ross Tucker NFL, at Ross Tucker Pod. All you have to do is quote tweet the show saying how much you love it, because I love quote tweeting you guys saying you love it. I love Gary David because Gary David is the latest patron. Patreon.com/RT Media. That's where you see the food grades, the power rankings, the Friday picks, and of course, the even money bets in black and white. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
The man needs no introduction. You follow him on social media at Ross Tucker, at Greg Cosell, because you want to know everything he's up to. NFL matchup show is fantastic. It is a must DVR show. Must DVR unless you're an early riser like me. All right, Greg, much to get to. We got a big game tonight. It's the undefeated Arizona Cardinals against the 6-1 Packers, but we've got some issues. Looks like J.J. Watt might be out for the season, and we know there's no Joe Barry, Devontae Adams, or Allen Lazard tonight for the Packers. So what will you be looking for? How do you think that affects the game?
Well, a couple of thoughts. If we look at the Green Bay offense, what I think you're going to see is Aaron Jones playing significant snaps at wide receiver. He's capable of doing that. They have another back in A.J. Dillon, who's certainly capable any given week of carrying 15 to 20 or 20 plus times if the game demands it. So I would expect to see Aaron Jones line up as a true wide receiver on significant snaps. As far as the Cardinals defense, Watt is a big loss. He's actually played very well. But the player to me that has really flashed when I watch tape of this Cardinals defense, which has played well, by the way, is Isaiah Simmons. He's now doing what I believe that they thought he could do when they drafted him. He plays in multiple spots. His length, his speed, his activity, his range, it now shows up on tape, and he can match up man-to-man on tight ends. So I would look for the Simmons-Tunyon matchup tonight as well.
You know what? The thing I don't think people are realizing enough, Greg, that I wanted to get your thoughts on. Arizona runs the ball really effectively. Remember last year, everybody was like, oh, James Conner stinks. He's done. Every time I watch Arizona, I feel like Chase Edmonds and James Conner, James Conner probably outweighs him by like 40 pounds, but I feel like they're running it. I don't know what the yards per carry is, but when I'm watching the red zone, you're the one watching the coaching tape. It's like you think Kingsbury, you think Air Raid, they're running it very well.
Well, they don't run it with high volume, but they run it effectively. And I think that's ultimately what they want to do. Because one thing they've done more and more of, and this presents problems for defenses, is they're lining up with what we call 10 personnel, Ross, meaning one back and 4 wide receivers, because they have 4 wide receivers. And what that does is it spreads the defense, as you know, and it creates lanes for the back. So they're running very effectively, not at a high volume because they're still a passing team. But the other element you see with the Cardinals, and this is where I think Cliff Kingsbury is doing a really good job growing as an NFL coach, is this offense is no longer static in terms of how they line people up, because that was always kind of a staple of the air raid, is that you just line people up on the left, on the right, you don't move them. Now you're seeing more movement in terms of receiver distribution and location, and you're seeing more motion. And I think Rondell Moore is one key to that, because he's a motion movement receiver, and they're taking advantage of that.
Love it. Let's get to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, they're playing the Jets, so it's, I'm not really that concerned about the matchup per se. I am concerned about what you're seeing from the Bengals. I mean, I tweeted this week, Greg, or maybe Sunday, at Ross Tucker NFL. When you're talking 11 personnel, quarterback, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, I'm not sure there's very many offensive skill groups that you would take over the Bengals for the next 5-10 years. When you think about Higgins, Boyd, and Jamar Chase, of course, this Uzama has been a revelation.
Yep.
Mixon at running back and Burrow at quarterback. That's a pretty darn good group of young people there, Greg, in the 11 personnel.
Well, I have to tell you that watching the Bengals O and the Ravens D was one of the most fascinating watches of the season from a tactical and schematic standpoint. Because if you just think about it, one of the things the Ravens do really, really well is they show a lot of multiple fronts with pressure looks. They'll get 6 people on the line of scrimmage, 7 people on the line of scrimmage. Now, we know that they're not all coming, but as an offense, you don't know who's coming and who's dropping. And you know this, Ross, from being in the league and just general football. You do not have a passing game if you can't protect your quarterback. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is, how good your receivers are. If you can't protect the quarterback, you have no passing game. So what really stood out on tape was the Bengals' approach. They put, not obviously on every snap, but third downs, critical down and distance situations, they went protection first. They put Pirine and Uzama in the backfield. So they essentially had a 7-man protection concept, because they were going to make sure that Joe Burrow was comfortable in the pocket. And then they worked their pass game that way. And that's where it started. So that was really fun to watch. And they did a really, really good job with that. And even though there was some leakage in the first half throughout the game, it really played out. And Burrow was a comfortable player throughout the game.
Very interesting. So our listeners right now, Greg, are saying, why don't more teams do that more often? Why don't you have 7-man protections, 3-man route, quarterback has all day, and the receivers will eventually get open if the quarterback has all day?
You only do that against teams that really have strong pressure packages and show a lot of pressure fronts. If you're playing a defense that's essentially a 4-man D-line pass rush and drops into coverage, you don't need to do that. So it's really a function of who you're playing against. There are teams in the league, Baltimore is maybe the prime example, but there's certainly others that line up with a lot of these pressure front looks, and you don't want to start guessing. Based on film study, there are always known pass rushers more than other players. Certain guys, hey, they're more likely to be part of the pressure scheme based on our film study than others. But still, you can't guess, Ross. You know that. You can't say, oh, well, here's what we think's going to happen. You have to be prepared to protect. And the Bengals did that. But you don't have to do that against every team. That's based on film study and based on your opponent. Let's get to the Titans and the Colts. Gigantic AFC South matchup. I mean, the Titans have a chance to kind of put so much separation between them and the Colts that they can, I don't want to say coast the rest of the way, but be in a very comfortable
position. Really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we've seen the last 2 weeks, the second half against the Bills and a good percentage of the time versus the Chiefs, big wins for the Titans at home, obviously, in the AFC, is their pass game has started to come around because we know Derrick Henry is a great player. You could argue that he's been the most dominant individual offensive player through the first part of this season, but it can't be just Derrick Henry. You have to work off Derrick Henry with the pass game, and they were not doing a real good job of that early in the season. Now, they really haven't had Jones and Brown on the field together for significant snaps. Hopefully that starts to happen. That was the plan. But their play-action pass game is starting to work. Last week, Tannehill was outstanding in the play-action pass game. And what they like to do with that pass game is one of two things: work the middle of the field or work outside the numbers when they get one-on-one matchups. And that's what they did with A.J. Brown last week. And if that part of their game starts to come together, which we saw a lot of last season, then they have a far more complete offense and they can create far more explosive plays, which is what they need.
What about the Eagles, Greg? I'm going to give you a blank canvas for this one. I don't know if you want to go offense, defense, or both, but obviously I do their pregame show, and I just want to get your thoughts on what the coaching tape is showing.
Well, I love the way
they play the Lions, by the way.
Your voice went down about 4 octaves there, you know. Well, look, you know, I've been around a lot of coaches in my career, and I always start with the belief that coaches know their players well. So when I see teams play a certain way, I don't immediately think the coaches are doing a bad job. I tend to think that they know their players really well, and this is the way they think they have to play based on their talent. So, you know, I think offensively, I think they've tried to play to what they believe is the comfort level and strength of Jalen Hurts. He's grown up as a shotgun quarterback. That's the way he's played. He's played with RPOs. This is what he's been his whole career. So they've tried to get him comfortable playing that way. The question is, can you play that way in the NFL? Can an RPO run game be a foundational run game in the NFL? I personally would argue no. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I would argue no. Clearly, Hurts has been up and down with his ball placement. So he's missed too many throws at the NFL level that you have to make. So there's been an inconsistency to Hurts throwing the ball on a weekly basis. Defensively, they've clearly played what many would consider in the NFL a very vanilla defense. They rush 4, they play predominantly zone, more split safety, some single high, cover 3. But I think there's weaknesses at given positions. And my guess is Jonathan Gannon believes this is the way I've got to line up. I don't have the people to do a lot of the things I may want to do. So it becomes a predictable defense that it relies on their front 4. And sometimes the front 4 is able to make things happen. Other times it's not. So it's been a difficult watch at times. You don't see a lot of diversity in what they do. We'll see if that changes.
The Bucks and the Saints is a big game, Greg. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the Saints do defensively because Dennis Allen is a really good coordinator. They've got people they can line up with and play man coverage. The Lattimore-Evans matchup has been a really good one over the last 2-3 years. It gets a little feisty because both players are super competitive. I think you will see that matchup. You know, Brady, to me, I think he's throwing the ball as well as he ever has, Ross. The ball has zip. It has velocity. He clearly sees things extremely well. This is an offense that has more of an intermediate and vertical element to it than he had in New England, and he's been making those throws. So I think that is a fascinating matchup. The other side of the ball, I think when you look at the Saints, the player you have to put your focus on is Alvin Kamara because their pass game has been a little up and down. But one thing we see with the Saints pass game right now with Winston, which we did not see that much of with Drew Brees in his last few years, is shot plays. And obviously shot plays there's a risk to shot plays. They're not automatics, but they do try to push the ball down the field on 1st and 10, normal down and distance situations. And if they can hit some of those, they create big plays.
Very curious about the Niners and the Bears, Greg, really for both teams. I want to get
Yeah.
your thoughts on what's going on with the Niners. I think this is the first time I've heard Kyle Shanahan be questioned, and there's talk of him being on the hot seat potentially. And then for the Bears, they certainly do not appear to be making as much progress as I think they were hoping to.
Yeah, and I think so much of that is preconceived narrative. You know how it is with a lot of these rookie quarterbacks. They come in the league now. I think a lot of people expect them to play really well. Some do, some don't. Justin Fields is going through the ups and downs of being a rookie. I think that he's a player that has second reaction ability. So when you see him make a second reaction play and it turns out to be a negative, if you believe that what could potentially make him special over time is his ability to make second reaction improvisational plays, then you can't get upset when he tries to do that and it turns out to be a negative, because ultimately he'll learn ideally from that. So you can't say, oh, you can't do that. Well, if one reason you like him is because you think he can do that, you can't have it both ways. So he's struggling a bit right now. The 49ers are an interesting team. We know they want to run the ball. Garoppolo is a schemed quarterback. He needs the reads and the throws to be defined by the offense. I hate to use the word system quarterback because every quarterback in the NFL is just by very definition a system quarterback because they're running a system. But Garoppolo needs it to be defined so he can see it and throw it. He's not a great thrower. I don't think he played as badly this past week as people think. People talked about him on social media as if he was terrible. I don't believe that at all based on the film, but they're struggling to generate big plays in the pass game. And it's just too hard in this league when you want to run the ball, and that's their foundation. If you don't create explosive plays in the pass game, it becomes too hard.
So the way you say that, Greg, it makes it sound like Jimmy G's not real good at going through his progressions, not real good as a drop back passer.
Well, I think ultimately what he is he's a quarterback that the longer he stays in the pocket, the less effective that he is. I think he's a timing rhythm player, whether it's the straight drop back game, whether it's the play action game, that he needs to hit that back foot. And I think the ball needs to come out. The longer he stays in the pocket, the less effective he is.
A lot of talk this week, Greg, about the Chiefs and what's wrong with the Chiefs. They play Monday night against the Giants, who somehow got a win without any of their skill guys actually playing in the game. It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah.
I guess we can talk about both sides of the ball, but certainly, the Chiefs only scored 3 points, Greg, and everybody knows the answer as to why.
Well, no one knows the answer. I can just tell you what the film shows. And if you recall, Ross, I talked about this starting very early in the season, maybe even starting week 1. Mahomes has always been a player that's made a lot of second reaction improvisational plays. He's been the best in the league at that over the time he's been a starter. That's what he did too at Texas Tech. It's the reason that a lot of teams, and I remember speaking to coaches at that year's combine that had some concerns about him. They just didn't feel he would run the offense within structure. Now, that seems laughable now to some extent, but he always walks a fine line between playing within structure and playing with outside of structure. And he's been so good outside of structure that it's been a non-issue. But outside of structure does have a certain randomness to it, Ross, as you well know. It has a randomness for the O-line. It has a randomness just for the play itself. And right now, that balance has shifted a little bit to the fact that those plays are not being made. The other thing I would say is they're a big RPO team. And again, I'm not sure an RPO is a foundational run game in the NFL. So the combination of those plays not being made by Mahomes in recent weeks, going literally back to week 1 and 2, and a run game that they can't fall back on has made their offense a little stuck. And one final point, which is really important. Teams are playing a lot more split safety coverage against them, including 2-man coverage. And that takes away a lot of those big play explosive elements where Tyreek Hill can just run away from people. So there's been a lot of factors that have played into it. I think they need to do a little bit of a reboot and they will, because Andy Reid's done this a long time, and Mahomes obviously is a very talented player. So they'll figure it out, but I think they're just struggling through all this right now.
Steelers and Browns is the last one I wanted to ask you about, Greg. You know, watching the Browns Thursday night, I guess from my perspective, it looked like that's kind of how the Browns want to play, whether it's Keenum or Mayfield. We don't know if Baker Mayfield will be back against Pittsburgh, but Case Keenum threw for 200 yards, a touchdown. They ran the crap out of the ball. It feels like that's who the Browns want to be.
That's who they are. And I know a lot of people will say that, oh, anybody could run that offense. Obviously, there is a difference between Keenum and Mayfield. Mayfield can make better throws in situations where you can't be totally proactive with what you do. So if you get to 3rd and long, Mayfield can throw it better than Keenum. But as far as, look, they played a team that couldn't score very much in Denver, so they never had to step outside of what they really want to be. So that game played out perfectly. We'll see who plays quarterback. I know Mayfield said that, he feels much better now. So we don't know at this point. But this is who they are. This is what they want to be. Then each game dictates if you can stay with that approach throughout the whole game. They could against the Broncos. There may be some weeks where they can't, and then Keenum is going to have to make throws if he's the starter.
At Greg Cosell is the Twitter handle, which is a great way to always know everything Greg is up to. If you're not on Twitter, by the way, you can just follow whoever you want and just get the content that you want, like knowing when Greg Cosell is available. At Greg Cosell. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Ross.
And thank you, Crocs. I saw where the D-end, Franklin Myers for the Jets, he was wearing Crocs the other day. He knows what's up. You don't have Crocs? Visit crocs.com and take your pick of wildly comfortable and lightweight clogs, sandals, and slides. It is very rare that I don't have Crocs on my feet. I like the cushion for the pushing. Even when I'm home, even when I'm in my house, it feels better on my feet. It feels better on my ankle joints, my knees, my hips. It's glorious. And they've got the Predator Showdown series coming, and it's free to play on DraftKings.com. Draft the best lineup, and a slice of 10 G's could be yours across 3 different contests. Visit DraftKings.com/Crocs on November 11th, that's a couple weeks, or Saturday, December 25th, Christmas, to draft your showdown lineups. Learn more at DraftKings.com/Crocs. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Tux Takes.
More, Ross. A lot of news coming out of the first in-person NFL League meeting since 2019. What stood out to you the most?
Well, of course, Roger Goodell is now under the firing line for the Washington football team investigation, and some of the lawyers representing the women involved in that investigation went to the owners' meetings. I mean, this is a real black eye and an ugly situation right now for the NFL. And it kind of was going to go away, or at least was on the back burner until the Gruden email leaks. I wonder if whoever did that really thought it through. Roger Goodell says they feel like Daniel Snyder's been properly punished. Just remember, Roger Goodell works for the owners. He's saying the things that he has to say, okay? Like, period. I thought it was interesting. Mark Davis, the only owner to say, yeah, I think they should release all the emails, because he's the one, if they've had all these emails all this time, and then the blindside Mark Davis midway through a very successful season, I'd be mad if I was Mark Davis too. And then the interesting thing is there's this talk. There's a bunch of things I want to talk to Andrew Brandt about next week. All this stuff came out yesterday after when Andrew and I would have recorded anyway. So it'll be good timing next week since we're doing kind of every other with Andrew Brandt. First of all, check out his latest podcast, Business of Sports, with both the lawyer and one of the alleged victims of the harassment in the Washington organization. Andrew's interviewed both of them this week. Business of Sports. Check it out for sure. Because I want to ask him about all those things. And Stan Kroenke is, I guess, changing his mind as it relates to indemnifying the league, because it looks like they're going to lose a pretty big lawsuit against the city of St. Louis for moving the Rams out to LA.
Tuck's Takes.
Houston Texans traded running back Mark Ingram to the Saints so he can reunite with the team that drafted him.
You know what's interesting here, Brian? I remember 3 or 4 years ago doing a Saints game. I might have been sidelined for Westwood One Monday night game. I remember a couple coaches saying, I think Ingram had maybe been suspended the first 4 games or hurt. They were so happy he was coming back because they felt like Kamara was a much more effective, productive player on less touches. They liked to keep Kamara fresh and healthy and let Ingram do more of the dirty work, which is why I'm confident a big reason why they signed Ingram or they traded for Ingram to come back.
Khalil Mack out this week for the Bears, and the Panthers reportedly no longer pursuing Deshaun Watson because he's not waived his no-trade clause for them. It's a lot of double negatives there.
No longer, not, no. Yeah, it's a triple negative. The double positive. You don't even know. So as for Khalil Mack, that hurts the Bears tremendously. I think he had 5 games in a row with a sack. Now he's in a bad spot where he's got to try to figure out. He might be out for a couple weeks. As for the Panthers, it's interesting. Well, so first of all, Deshaun Watson reportedly not waiving his trade clause for the Panthers. That's interesting, number one. I would love to hear an explanation for that. Number two, it feels like the Panthers are really trying to get the word out that they're not in on it, which makes you think it might be happening with the Dolphins, right? The Panthers don't want to look like they were in on it and they weren't able to get them. So, or maybe they just really crushed the Texans' leverage with the Dolphins because the Dolphins know the Panthers are out of it now.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, we got a game tonight, Thursday night football. Cardinals hosting the Packers. Pretty big game. Who do you like and why?
Well, the first thing I like is AutoZone Visibility Week, which is next week, right after Halloween Sunday night, November 1st and November 7th. Make it a point to join the AutoZone Rewards program. It's so easy. Plus, you get another $5 bonus reward just for joining. So then you get a $10 bonus reward when you buy 2 Rain-X Quantum wiper blades, $25 bonus reward when you buy a Sylvania LED fog twin pack. Always a good time to upgrade anything visibility related. Now's the best time. So long daylight savings time. AutoZone Visibility Week is right around the corner. Visit your nearest AutoZone or head to AutoZone.com to start your job today. Get in the zone, AutoZone. As for the game tonight, I like the Cardinals. I think the Packers are a little bit too beat up. As I said, though, on the Even Money podcast, I like the Packers getting the points. I think it'll be a competitive game. I thought that nugget from Greg Cosell regarding Aaron Jones at receiver a lot tonight was interesting. I'm bummed out for J.J. Watt. I really am. Cardinals have a legit chance to go to the Super Bowl. Certainly a really good chance right now to get to the NFC Championship game. J.J. Watt's never gotten that far. He's never taken the field knowing if we win this game, we're going to the Super Bowl. I wanted that for him. He's been such a good player, such a good person. It's a major bummer. I mean, he played through this injury the rest of the game. Well, it kind of makes you wonder if he's able to play through it the rest of the game. Could he let it heal for a month? Let it rest? Just not practice? Just play in the game? I don't know. Evidently not. Evidently he's going to try to get the surgery as soon as possible and then come back from it earlier. Sincerely hope it works out for him. Sincerely hope more of you guys decide, you know what? I got something I'd like to get a little attention for. I'd like to get some eyeballs on it. Well, then become an I Think We're Done Here member of patreon.com/RT Media. like Delicious Pizza Boy Brewing, like Very Cool Sporticulture, cool gift, Vision Comics with an X, HumanHeadNYC.com if you're into vinyl records, another cool gift, and then SteakhouseSports.com if you like making games a little bit more interesting with my guy Chris Aronchek. Really a lot of cool things there. Tomorrow, I will recap tonight's Thursday night game and give you all my picks for week number 8 already in the National Football League. College draft, even money, both fantasy feasts, and I think maybe even 2 business sports all posted. You got plenty of time to watch, listen, whatever. Giving out some winners tomorrow. We want winners. We're like Mike Singletary. I think we're done here.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.